Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Heather and happy Halloween. This video should be going up on Halloween, so I hope you're enjoying. As I'm filming it, I am currently a week and 1 day out from Halloween, so we are going to be doing a spooky reading vlog. It is time to get into the spooky season vibes all the way. I mean, I kind of have been, but like fully into them for the next week as we prep for Halloween. So I have a few books chosen out. This is a very ambitious TBR, but I'm really crossing my fingers I can make it happen, of books that I would like to read in the next week leading up to Halloween. So I'm gonna give you my TBR. Sorry that the lighting is crazy. We have officially reached the time of year where it's dark right up until like when I leave for work. And so if I want to film things in the morning like I am right now, it just is gonna have to be the normal lighting in my house. So my like forehead is reflecting. It's, yeah, not ideal, but please just ignore that. So for today's video, the first book that I'm reading is The Devil Aspect by Craig Russell. I'm about halfway through this book. Actually, I think I'm like exactly halfway through this book. I started it in my mood reading video, so if you saw my last book video, I started this one. We're actually gonna finish it in this one. This one's been more spooky season-esque than I expected it to be. It is set in Prague and the surrounding areas. You're following two different characters, one of which is a psychiatrist who has just gotten a job to work in an insane asylum where they have like the most notorious serial killers in the country. All 6 of them are in this one insane asylum. It's in this like old castle fortress thing, which is just such a good vibe. And then you are also following a police inspector who is trying to track down the latest serial killer that is a Jack the Ripper copycat. And so you're kind of following 2 of them. Supposedly at some point their paths are supposed to cross. That has not happened yet, and I'm halfway. So I'm very interested to see when that finally happens, because I think, if I'm guessing right, that the psychiatrist is going to end up helping solve the case. We'll see. At the point that I'm at, they have kind of thrown suspicion on a lot of different characters. So I'm very curious to see who ends up being the leather apron. That's the killer that the detective's trying to find, because they've really thrown suspicion on almost everyone at this point, and so I'm very interested to see who it actually ends up being. So that's the first book. I'm going to be finishing The Devil Aspect. The next one is actually a middle grade book. This one I think is like a very peak spooky season one, and this is The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman. This is one of my husband's favorite books from when he was a kid, and I've never read it, so I decided to pick it up. This one is about a kid who is being raised in a graveyard, potentially by like ghosts. Again, not really sure. I haven't read this one. I don't know a ton about it, but my husband suggested it, and so I decided to go ahead and do it this year. So that's the next one. I also have one audiobook that I want to listen to sometime in the next week, and that is The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. I've never read the actual book of this, or short story, so I want to listen to it. It's only about an hour, so that makes this a little less intense of a TBR, but I do want to do that one maybe on actual Halloween, but I want this video to go up on Halloween, so I don't know, we'll see. I'll figure it out. Sometime I will be listening to The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. And then the other book that is going to help this be not so ambitious of a TBR is that the next one is a graphic novel, and that is Garlic and the Vampire by Brie Paulson. This one I've heard Katie from Katie's Reading talk about so many times. She reads it a lot, like every year. And so I was very interested. I read one other graphic novel. It was White Sands by Brandon Sanderson, and it was okay, but I don't think that story fit the format very well. So I'm very interested to read a book that I think the story will fit the formatting a little bit better as a graphic novel. So this one just seems like a cute, fun one that I could sit down and read in like an hour. So another one that will make this a little less ambitious. And then the last full book that I have on this TBR, and this is kind of my, we'll see if I get to it. I would love to read it this week, but I'm not sure I'm going to make it happen. So this might be one that I like start in this video and then finish later, we'll see. But that is The Twisted Ones by T. Kingfisher. This one's not so specifically spooky season, but it is a horror book, so it fits. This one is about this lady, I believe, who goes to clean out her grandma's house, who is a hoarder, and then she starts to find some interesting things in the house, and that's about all I know. I just love Tea Kingfisher. I'm slowly working my way through her entire backlist, so this is the next one I want to get to. I've read 2 other books by her. Have I read 3 this year? At least 2 other books by her this year. So I'm very excited about this one. Again, I don't know if I'll fully get this one finished this week, but this is probably the last one that I'll start. So that's my TBR for my spooky season reading for this week as we lead up to Halloween. I will bring you along as I read these books and let you know my thoughts, and then hopefully I'll get this video up on Halloween for you to watch. So if you're looking for some fun spooky book reading content for Halloween, hopefully this video will be that for you. So I'm gonna go get reading and I will check in with you when I have some thoughts. I finished The Double Aspect. The second half of this book went so much faster than the first half of this book, so I really cruised through the last little bit. This was good. I think I'm gonna give it like a 4-star. It's not a perfect book by any means, and it is so gory and there are so many trigger warnings. So let me just preface that. This is probably one of the darkest, goriest books I've read in a long time, if ever. For sure the goriest book I think I've ever read. It is got some crazy stuff in it, which like makes sense with what the subject is. You're following like serial killers and things, but if you have anything that triggers you, it's very likely that it's somewhere in this book, and so proceed with caution. Other than that, the mystery I thought was solved very interestingly. It definitely surprised me. It wasn't my top guess, but it's complicated. I sort of guessed it, sort of didn't. So yeah, that doesn't really help if you haven't read the book, but it was good. I was satisfied with the twist. The epilogue was very interesting. Throughout this whole book, it's kind of set in the time frame when Hitler is starting to gain power in Germany, and you're really kind of the very beginnings of World War II. And so that is kind of like this overarching theme that is throughout the whole book. And the Czech Republic has just kind of gotten its own independence, and there's a lot of talk about like national identity, and almost everybody is kind of a mix between German and Czech, or you've got a lot of things about like the gypsies and the Jews and all of these different things. And so there's a very large discussion about like national identity versus like race, and just like how you choose to align yourself when you maybe have a very complicated mixed past. That whole setting and the time frame becomes very interesting in how the epilogue wraps things up, and where some of the characters end up. I obviously can't say what happens without spoiling the book, but I don't know, it was a very interesting ending. It's definitely not like your standard, I mean, you weren't really expecting anyone to have a happy ending in this book, but it's definitely not that. It's not your like typical ending to a book. So I don't know, it was good. I don't know that I would blanket recommend it to anyone just because it is so heavy and gory and there's so many triggering topics in it, but I did enjoy it. So if it's interesting to you, it's a good thriller. The first part definitely moves a little bit slow, but after that, about the halfway point, it really picks up and it goes quite fast after that. So I was satisfied with this one. It definitely kept you guessing on whether it was going to go supernatural or not. I felt like there was a lot of the book where I was like, I can't tell if we're gonna take a supernatural route or if we're going to explain this all away with like real life logic, and I'm not going to tell you which one because I feel like that's spoilers. So again, it was good. It fit well for like an October read. A lot of this is set, it's like fall moving into winter in the book, so it's perfect for this time period. The atmosphere was really good. I did enjoy the characters. This is definitely more of a plot-based book. It's not like a character-driven book, so you know, take that as you will depending on what you like, but I definitely am a plot reader, so this one worked for me. With that being said, I'm gonna move on to my next book. I haven't started it yet, but I do think I'm going to pick up the Graveyard book next by Neil Gaiman. I think going from something super dark and gory to like a middle grade book will be a good move, so I think this one's actually gonna be a pretty quick read. Again, it is meant for like middle schoolers more so. How many pages is this? Oh, that's a fun illustration in the back. We got pictures. It's 286 pages, so it's really not that long. And yeah, there are quite a few pictures. I'm probably gonna spoil things by looking at pictures, but this is gonna be my next read. I'll check in when I've finished this one with you guys. And then I think what I'll probably do, depending on when I'm done with this one, is I might start the Twisted Ones and then I'll pick up Garlic and the Vampire maybe like Wednesday or Thursday as we get closer into Halloween. I don't know, we'll just kind of see when I'm feeling in the mood for something light and fun. But Graveyard book's our next one. I'll check in with you when I have some thoughts on this. Okay, quick update on this video. I have finished the Graveyard book by Neil Gaiman. First of all, perfect spooky season book. This had more spooky creatures than I expected there to be. It doesn't necessarily come right out and say everything, but there's some like ghouls. You obviously have the ghosts. There's a vampire and like a werewolf. So I think there's even a mummy at one point. Like they're really hitting a lot of the things. But I gave this one 4 stars, I think. It's a good, fun book. It definitely starts out a lot more intense than I thought it was going to, considering it's like a middle grade book. Or at least that's how it's always been pitched to me. It starts off with this entire family being murdered except for the baby. And the baby happens to have escaped the house somehow and gets taken in at the graveyard. And so that's how you end up with this kid in the graveyard. And then you're just kind of following his life as he gets raised by these ghosts and this, I'm pretty sure he's supposed to be a vampire. You do eventually come around to kind of solving the mystery of this murder at the beginning of the books and dealing with the people that did it. So it was a good one. I thought it was very, again, fitting for the season. If you're looking for just a fun, very quick read that I think it could kind of go for most stages. Graveyard book, it was good. I recommend. I would be interested to read some other books by Neil Gaiman. There were some very fun moments in this one. I don't know how I feel about the ending of it. I think that's my biggest gripe with it, is it kind of ends in a way that I feel like he could have written a different ending that would have felt more satisfying and more like it matched the characters and the storyline that we had been going, but it kind of doesn't, and I can't really say more than that without spoiling things. But let me know if you've read this book how you feel about the ending. I'm curious. I didn't love the ending of it, but everything up to that point was really good. So that's the Graveyard book. I finished that one, and then I've started 2 other books since we last talked. First I picked up The Twisted Ones by T. Kingfisher. That was on my TBR, so I'm gonna go ahead and work my way through that one. First impressions, I'm about 60 pages in. It's good. It's very like modern day horror. Her grandma died and she's going to clean out the house. Turns out her grandma was a hoarder. And there's this journal from her step granddad that has some weird stuff in it. And that's kind of as far as we've gotten. There's a dog in the story, which is going to be interesting to see how the dog impacts it. It's a very active narrator. Like, she's writing this as if she was kind of writing in a journal or something like that. And so that is kind of fun. I'm not really far enough to have tons of thoughts on that one. And then I also started on the Kindle, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. I was originally going to listen to this one as an audiobook, but I finished Halloween Tree earlier this month listening to an audiobook, and that was one where I finished it and I was like, I think that would have gone better for me if I had read it instead of listened to it. So I had a feeling that Sleepy Hollow was going to go kind of the same way, so I decided to read it instead of listening to it. I also just like don't really have anything going on that requires an audiobook right now, so I figured I'd go with this one. I decided to read this before bed because I didn't want to read the twisted ones like right before I went to sleep, so I picked this one up and it was really putting me to sleep. So I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing yet. I'm not very far. I've only gotten to the point where we've introduced Sleepy Hollow and Ichabod Crane. We haven't seen the Headless Horseman yet. So that's where I'm at on this one. It's going fine. It will be a very fast read. Like, I really didn't read that much last night because, again, I was starting to fall asleep. But I made it to page 16, which is already 28%. So this one will be very fast. I wouldn't be surprised if I finish this one like tonight or tomorrow, and then I will give you an update. Okay, I have finished my books for this video, so it is time to do a final wrap up, let you know what I read. First, I finished The Twisted Ones by T. Kingfisher. I'm giving this one like 3.5 stars. It was good. I don't feel like her horror books are my favorite books by her. I'm definitely more of a fan of her fantasy ones. This one was yet another one where I got to the author's note at the end and realized that this was actually based off of another short story. Let me look it up. This one is loosely based off of The White People by Arthur Machen? Not really sure how to say that, but it is based off of that short story. And this is almost like a sequel. I feel like this is the same thing with The Hollow Places, where it's basically a sequel to it instead of necessarily like a retelling. And I think she does the retellings better. That's what a lot of her fantasy books are that I've read, are actual retellings, and I think she pulls those off better than these ones that are basically sequels. I feel like these ones just fall a little flat for me. There's something about the world building that just always feels like it's missing, and I think it might just be because she's basing it so heavily off of somebody else's world that I feel like we miss a little bit of her uniqueness and her fun world building. So it was good, it was fine. Do I have anything specific thoughts? Not really. It was just kind of unremarkable, I guess. It's like not that spooky. And I think that's one of my big complaints is I went into this thinking it was gonna be like a horror, build the suspense, build the spooky vibes, and it just really wasn't. So like there's stuff happening that's definitely like scary, horror-y stuff, but it doesn't feel suspenseful. I feel like A Sorceress Comes to Call felt more spooky and suspenseful than this one did, so that was probably the biggest downside. And honestly, the rest of the books that I read in this video were all kind of like that. They weren't really spooky. The other book, next book that I finished was The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, and this one was another one that just, well, I don't get why people describe this as a spooky book. It's very atmospheric for fall, but it's not really a spooky book. Like, they talk about some of the local folklore, and it talks about how Sleepy Hollow is known for its like ghosts and stuff. And then there's the whole Headless Horseman thing, but that is so little of the story. Like, I think I was at about 60%, maybe slightly further, before we really got into what everybody thinks of as Legend of Sleepy Hollow, and then the book ended at 75%. So it was very, very little of the story, and I guess this is slight spoilers. I don't know if it matters with a classic like this, but like, skip 30 seconds. It turns out it's all just a practical joke, and he's fine. Like, there was no Headless Horseman, it was just a practical joke. So that was not my favorite. I don't know, it was okay. I can see why people like it for the fall vibes. I don't understand why we're calling this a spooky book. It's not spooky. And then the last one was one that thankfully I was not expecting to be spooky, so it kind of lived up to my expectations. Oh, I didn't say Legend of Sleepy Hollow, I'm giving 3 stars. But the final one that I read was Garlic and the Vampire. This one was fun. I enjoyed this one. I think I rated this one like a 4-star. I think it was a cute little book. It took me about a half hour, 45 minutes to read. So if you want something super just short and quick, it was very cute. And maybe I'll pick up the second one. I know there's one more. I'd be interested. I like the little characters. They're fun. This is just like a good time. It's not anything crazy. It's just a cute little wholesome book about witches and vampires and vegetables. So really, I definitely started off with the spookier books. Devil's Aspect was by far the like freakiest, goriest book in this video. Graveyard Book also kind of brought the vibes. Everything else was a little anticlimactic, underwhelming on the spooky factor. But I did really enjoy all of the books that I read. I thought they were all good. So that is my spooky season reading vlog. Tomorrow is Halloween, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up here so I can get this video edited and to you guys on actual Halloween. But I thoroughly enjoyed all of my reading that I did, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any recommendations of what spooky books I should read next year, I'm always looking for more, so I'd love to be able to just come back to this video and have a bunch of comments recommending a whole bunch of spooky books to me. So please leave your recommendations down below. What are your go-to spooky season books? And I will add them to my list for next year, or maybe like a summerween type thing. I haven't done that before, but it could be fun to do this year. So without further ado, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up here. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one very soon. Bye.